Hello everyone, Jewel here. After a couple videos that I made about best RPG games on modern platform, maybe it's time for us to step back a little bit to the classic one. So I thought, hey, maybe PS2 is a great idea. Because there's a lot of good RPG games on PS2 that actually still relevant to play even today. Alright then, let's get started. Despite the superficial Western touches, Wild Arms 3 is a pretty conventional Japanese RPG. And because of its great looks, compelling story, and good cast of characters, this game should appeal to anyone who likes JRPG. The combat is decent, it's basically the same as its predecessor with a few minor changes. Overall, it's still a well-made game that lives the most true JRPG elements well enough. The Ark of Napishtim creates a nice space for itself in the ARPG genre. For a PS2 action RPG, it is actually quite satisfying. Enemies are challenging enough that you will need to carefully watch their attack patterns and movements. The graphics are excellent, even though the story is not as good as other E-series in my opinion. Nevertheless, you're still going to have some fun with this iconic ARPG. Despite some of its weaknesses, Summoner 2 is basically a fun and interesting RPG to play. The game has only a few connections to its predecessor, so if you have never played Summoner 1, there is no need to worry. Though the combat isn't that great, the fact that you can choose who to bring to the fray and how to develop each character makes Summoner 2 feels open-ended without compromising the game's emphasis on storytelling. Overall, Summoner 2 is an all-around good game and a solid sequel. Grandia III is an interesting game. Despite the lack of things to do outside the main quest, its battle system, character introductions, and boss fights are compelling enough for you to enjoy a total playthrough. It does a great job of reeling you in early, though the overall story is not as strong as the other Square Enix franchise. However, it's still quite a fun experience, especially because of the combat and magnificent boss battles. Kingsfield: The Ancient City proves to be quite a unique RPG game for PS2. Huge exploration, fresh combat mechanic, and tons of replayability come together to make a charming and addictive experience. It takes a while to get used to the game mechanic and all that, but when you do, you'll be amazed on how underrated this game is. Kingsfield: The Ancient City is a strong recommendation to anybody who loves dungeon crawling and a Souls-like experience. Odin Sphere deserves to find a sizable audience. It's full of charm and depth that can entertain those eager to simply experience the story. It is a 2D scroll action RPG with few skill options to match your playstyle. The story is simple but quite engaging. If you never played this game before, then it is time to experience Odin Sphere on the emulator. Growlanser Generations contains two full-length strategy RPG, Growlanser II and Growlanser III. There are lots of things to do to flesh out the world, but of course the core of the gameplay is the tactical battles and ring-based weapon system. The worlds in both games are large and sprawling, and you'll be moving through various key locations in each with slightly different systems. While these RPGs are now a bit behind the graphical curve, they still offer lengthy branching storylines and lots of tactical action, making this a great package with tons of value. Disgaea 2 is almost exactly like the first title in the series. It suffers from a lack of explanation of various terms or features. Even though there's a few amount of help present, you may discover that you'll be somewhat lost every now and then as you journey through the game. That being said, Disgaea 2 is still an awesome strategy title that manages to provide an obscene level of depth and strategy with multiple endings, hundreds of characters to create or discover, and new content. After spending a good amount of hours with a group of characters embroiled in one life or death situation after another, you cannot help wanting for more. Now, the concept of a direct sequel has been put into practice, and the result is Final Fantasy X2, a slightly uneven but still engaging game. The story's almost total reliance on Final Fantasy X may limit its audience only for those who enjoy that game. But then, if you are into RPGs and own a PS2, odds are you have finished Final Fantasy X at least once already. At its best, Final Fantasy X2 is a good sequel and a fresh air for the franchise. Any fan of Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance who wanted more adventuring to go through will find it right here. The workshop feature creates a bit of an added experience and some new weapons to play with, but if the system was opened even further to make the weapons and armor more fluid, it would have been better. The biggest change is the new characters, especially the Necromancer, who brings some different strategies to the game. If you haven't played the original, don't worry about missing anything since the story doesn't require any previous knowledge. Playing Champions of Norrath can be a little bittersweet. The core components that make up the game experience, the graphics, the sound, the actual gameplay all come together to create an experience that is better than the original. The game offers an enjoyable single-player and multiplayer experience, and there is enough to it to keep you entertained for a long time. Unfortunately, there are some noticeable bugs which could have and should have been addressed before the game's release. However, Champions of Norrath is still truly a great game, and that speaks to the sheer quality of work that Snowblind has put into its game. Suikoden V represents a homecoming of sorts. It's not without flaws, but it does a great job of bringing many of the series' best elements to the fore and provides an experience that fans in particular will really appreciate. The engaging storytelling fit perfectly into the recruitment of your 108 closest friends, and there is still nothing quite like it in the RPG genre. Suikoden V offers more than you would think, and with a little more polish, it could have been something truly special. Overall, this is a good game for any Suikoden fans. There hasn't been a more engrossing RPG trilogy in this PS2 generation than Xenosaga franchise. While this last installment may not be on the same level as other PS2 classics like Final Fantasy X or Dragon Quest VIII, it still tells one hell of a great story that, when combined with the previous two games, stands on its own as a powerful piece of science fiction. Sure, it may not have the greatest battle system or be the most technically brilliant, but at the end of the day, it manages to keep you glued to your seat with complicated theme and mature subject matter. Hopefully, we will get to see more Xenosaga in the future. Dark Cloud 2 is a masterpiece. While the first game looked merely decent for its time, the visual improvements made by the new game are staggering. Every element of the game, from the gameplay core to the weapon upgrading to the interaction with a large cast of characters, displays a polish and attention to quality that you find only in real classics. Dark Cloud 2 could very well be the PlayStation 2 version of Zelda, and it will appeal to fans of the action RPG genre for a long time to come.
Ticket to go in.
Shadow Heart's Covenant is literally the perfect sequel, much deeper than most other turn-based RPGs and neck with Shin Megami Tensei in the race for the best storyline. It already has the ingredients needed for a proper role-playing follow-up. But more importantly, Shadow Hearts 2 can stand on its own 2 feet as a great game. As players who never fought their way through the first Shadow Hearts don't even have to worry about it, because Covenant is just that good, whether any of you were around to experience its background story or not. Star Ocean Till the End of Time manages to do what most RPG games only hope to. With its combination of high action battles, deep strategic planning, unique sci-fi setting, and its satisfying gameplay, more than enough to overshadow its voice acting and plot pacing sore points. Star Ocean also allows its players to take from it whatever they wish, be it a quick 40 hours of story-based adventure or a full 80 hours of exploration. This RPG that took almost a generation to arrive proves that it is indeed a good classic. Valkyrie Profile to Silmeria is an extremely deep title, one that will easily last you more than 50 hours when you play through the game for the first time. It also gives you lots of replayability when you consider the return of the Seraphic Gate from the first game, as well as the ability to replay the game on a harder difficulty level. It does suffer from a lack of connection to the characters, as well as a dependence on physical items and equipment that you are not guaranteed to ever receive. But as far as RPGs go, this is easily one of the best ones that have been released on the PS2.
It shall be engraved upon your very soul!
Dragon Quest VIII brings out the best that Dragon Quest has to offer. A solid storyline with realistic characters fighting unrealistic monsters. The game is also quite challenging. Victory relies more on the strategy of attack, items, and less on the level of the party, makes the learning experience doesn't feel tedious at all. Dragon Quest VIII is easily one of the best RPG of PS2 generation, and it deserves a spot in anyone's RPG library. Final Fantasy X is a masterpiece. In fact, the game is so amazing that calling it a game is unfair. The story is definitely the strongest core of the game. It seems simple at first glance, but as you go in deeper, it reveals a complicated story. For the combat, you can only have 3 party members on the battlefield at once, but anytime during the battle, you can change characters by substitution. Complex and yet so simple, as a love story, Final Fantasy X succeeds beautifully. Kingdom Hearts 2 has made some big steps since the original Kingdom Hearts game was released. Significant changes to both camera system and the basic combat allow you to play through the game without being frustrated by both problems, and the gameplay is for the most part enjoyable. The game offers an extremely long gameplay experience that takes you through an absolute adventure. You don't have to be familiar with everything related to Disney, Square, or even the previous games in the series to enjoy Kingdom Hearts 2. But familiarity will make the experience more enjoyable. Persona 3 Fest is basically the perfect form of Persona 3. With tons of additional content, redesigned gameplay, and an epilogue that fully concludes the story. While it still suffers from some of the same issues that plagued the original, the large amount of additional content far outweighs these negatives. The fact that you're getting both the original and its virtual sequel is a steal that no PS2 RPG fans should be without. Tales of the Abyss is one of those games that should please die-hard Tales fans and win over a number of newcomers to the series. Lots of memorable heroes and villains, tons of missions and side quests, and lots of goals that you won't exactly discover or finish on the first playthrough helps buffing the game. The story and character development in this game are top-notch. Combat is quite enjoyable and there are tons of skill combo variations that you can try, not just from one character, but also from the entire party member. In short, if you love JRPG, you don't want to miss this game. Rogue Galaxy definitely brings the noise to longtime RPG fans. Though its storyline isn't on the same level as other great PS2 games in the genre, its mixture of strong combat mechanics, addictive side quests, and absolutely stunning visual style more than makes up for what it doesn't do. There are plenty of special moves that characters can unleash as well, makes the combat fun and satisfying. At times, it looks more like a high-quality animated movie than like a game, and for the most part, it runs nice and smooth with very few loading times there to interrupt your progress through all kinds of different colorful environments. Overall, this is a game that does enough differently or even better than most of its PS2 predecessors. Final Fantasy XII is a fantastic RPG. It blows all of its PS2 competition right out of the water and is among the all-time elite RPG ever made for the system. By integrating the combat and exploration, Final Fantasy has come one step closer to being more immersive than before. And while Final Fantasy XII takes some liberties with series conventions, it sticks closely to most of the good ones, delivering another memorable and highly recommended experience in the process. A significant improvement over the previous Persona games in many ways, Persona 4 provides a deeper dungeon crawling or social link experience that makes it engaging to play. Everything from the battle system, the dungeons that you fight through, to the social links you develop and friend interaction that you do on your off hours has been radically improved in this game. It really feels like an evolution of the RPG game in PS2 generation. In fact, you will find this to be a great game that deserves a spot in your PS2 library. Alright boys, I think that's it for today. Don't forget to subscribe the channel and like the video if you like it, and feel free to express your opinion in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Peace.